I train the Royal Air Force, Navy SEALs, people from SEAL Team 6, the best of the best of the best in the world. My best go-to tool is what I call Relax on Demand. They still don't know about this method often, and it's a game changer.
Stig Severinsen is a multi-world record freediver and breathwork pioneer, redefining human limits through the power of breath. He's proving that mastery of the breath can unlock superhuman resilience, calm, and longevity. I want you to rewire my brain right now. What should I do?
Soften your eyes, soften your forehead, soften your entire face. In that exhale, soften your shoulders. Little smile on your face. Hold it there, hold it in. Just feel your chest a bit tense, a bit open. Maybe you can feel the heart because there's less room now, but we're still holding our breath. And we're in control. That's the magic of breathing.
This is amazing. You spend so much time with a wide range of people from different parts of this world. What are we getting wrong? What is one thing, one key takeaway they can take that will transform their life?
Maybe one of the most important questions in our time, to be very honest.
The future looks amazing, but also a little scary. If you, just like me, want to have an honest outlook of what the next chapter could look like and how best to prepare for that, I ask for one simple favor. Subscribe, so I can invite the brightest minds on this podcast and get those answers for both you and I. Enjoy the episode. Was there a defining moment in your childhood when you were younger that you believe now you can look back on to say, that was the moment that defined my life?
Ooh, that's a big question. I guess a few moments, but one I remember very clearly, also because at that time now the younger generation listening probably has no clue what I'm talking about. We had photos in paper. And we printed them out and we put them in a little booklet and we would look at them with our families. And it's actually a quite nice way when I now pull out those albums and look at them, right? Because they're right there. You don't have to scroll through all your storage in the cloud. But anyways, I have one picture in particular with my younger brother, who's today fine surgeon. He's doing ophthalmology, so he's doing surgery in the eyes and helping people to see again, which I think is a beautiful thing to do. But we have a photo in the Mediterranean where we are standing side by side, and we got our first diving knives and a spear gun. And we have the mask on, we have the snorkel, which is way too narrow and way too long. You hardly can breathe through it. But I would say, that is probably related to what we're going to discuss today.
Yeah. One
of the defining moments, feeling, so proud. And we can talk about Mission Impossible and Mr. Tom Cruise and all this kind of action life, all we want as well, James Bond. But it was like you're young and you feel so proud that you're allowed to have this, equipment and feel kind of like, one of my big heroes growing up was Jacques Cousteau, a defender for the ocean and for, the marine life and protecting and discovering everything in the ocean. I also became a marine biologist, I think that moment when I look back like a photograph, if you want to sit there here on the podcast listening, imagine these two blonde, I'm half Swedish, half Danish guys with his hair, bleached by the sun, and then these little skinny bodies on that cliff there in Spain with a spear gun and a knife. I felt just so proud. So I think that when you look back at something that make you feel confident and related in a sense on a deeper path, because I really love the ocean. I'm a swimmer. We can get into that, but all my life I did swimming, competitive swimming. And then the freediving was a hobby. So, we can go on from there, but that is still my best advice to people. Look for your passion, and it sounds so, what a cliche, but follow your passion. And if you don't even know what it is, and if you don't know what to do, if you have to give advice to, let's say, younger people or people that feel a bit lost in life, then at least if you know what you don't like, if you know what you don't want to do, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Don't become a lawyer just because your dad wants you to become a lawyer. Don't become a dentist because your dad had a clinic and so forth. Find your own path.
What does fear mean to you?
Fear, that's a good one. Wow, great questions. Fear always meant to me losing someone you love or something you love. I've never been very fearful. In my life, which is not to say that I don't have the greatest respect of things, I like I'm a herpetologist. Randomly, it means a person who's nuts about reptiles. So snakes and little, geckos and frogs and stuff, that's a herpetologist. So besides marine biology and all the sharks, turtles, all the fish, all the animals living in the sea and corals and the whole ecosystem, I always liked reptiles very much. It also stems from the fact that I had severe asthma as a child. So that's the second defining moment. As a child, when I was about 4 or 5, one of my very first memories was grinding my teeth and feeling, when you're a child, you can't really express or put eloquent words on what's actually going on. So I had this feeling, and I still can trace back and kind of replay this feeling, a horrible feeling that my teeth were too big, especially my molars, which are the big teeth in the back of your jaw. I felt they were too big simply because I couldn't breathe enough. I felt something was obstructing my airways, the air getting to the lungs, basically. And so that is really, if I would say, a more defining moment, in the sense that was really a feeling that I can still recall, and it was not a nice one. Lying in my bed there and sneezing and wheezing and because I had asthma, both from allergies, from grass allergies, from in the summertime in Denmark, a lot of grass, very green, very dry, in June especially. And then also from fur. So from some guinea pigs we had, and you drag in all the hay, and and then I was tested. You have 30 like little needle dots, and you can see what you're allergic to. And that was especially horses and guinea pigs and cats, especially because they have a very special coat, fur. So I didn't have any furry animals, those guinea pigs we had to get rid of. So I loved to keep snakes and frogs and things that didn't have fur.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably why I became obsessed with them. Plus, who doesn't love dinosaurs, as a child? And a snake and, these kind of reptiles are kind of the link to the dinosaurs as well. And I thought they were just cool, So it's kind of like an avatar animal. So, yeah, those were probably the two defining moments. And then from breathing, I guess, or from not being able to breathe well, I think that carved the path for me without knowing it. When you're 5, you don't think about, what am I going to do? But I always followed my passion. I was true to this purpose-driven journey on discovery of animals and catching animals, investigating animals, observing animals, photographing animals, drawing animals. I like drawing, I like painting. So, and keeping them in cages, learning about their behavior, their, reproductive strategy. How do they, try to impress the female and so forth. So that was really ingrained at an early age. And then I did become a biologist. It's called a master's degree in science, a scientific degree. And then I did my PhD in medicine. So I followed that path of health and natural sciences, but always with this childish, passion and being so curious. But I never had fear. So what I was going to say before was, of course, I have a healthy respect of snakes, especially the Western taipan, cobras, the very dangerous snakes. And if you're handling snakes, which I also like to do, you need to show the utmost respect. So I think fear is not a good place to start. It's healthy to have, a healthy dose of respect. But if you start, for example, a dive, when I do we can get back to the Guinness World Records and this other stuff I do in my hobby as well as a hobby. But diving under ice, when I beat the Wim Hof record, for example, back in 2010, the first time, in Speedos, you go under the ice, thick ice. You can't really.
For how long?
Oh, it's not about length. It's about length. It's not for the time. We will.
How long was that?
It's just a few minutes. Oh, how long? It's like the last one I did was 250 feet when I got my own program on Discovery Channel called The Man Who Doesn't Breathe. People can find it on YouTube. And then I also did another one 500 feet under ice. But now we're kind of getting derailed, which is cool. But in the later years, when I went from doing world records, which is winning the world championship, I'm a 4-time freediving world champion, which means, it's just some people mix it up. When you become a world champion, you have to go to the official world championship of something, in my case, freediving, and you have to win at that day, at that moment. at that competition against those competitors, which have also trained for the World Championship. So you're a real world champion. You get the medal and maybe a towel if you're lucky in freediving. No big gifts there. I'm serious. I got a vacuum cleaner and a camera that was not even waterproof when I got 2 gold medals the last time I became for the 4th World Championship title. And I'm not even kidding you. Tried to sell that camera on eBay and I couldn't even sell it. It had batteries you had to put in it. So anyways, that's kind of the level we're at, and we paid for all the journeys ourselves. So if people think I'm a self-made millionaire from freediving, that's not the case.
Can I ask something quickly?
Of course, yeah.
A child with asthma,
Yeah.
to how many minutes were you able to hold?
I was the first person in the world to pass the 20-minute mark. That was my big dream. If I could be the first to hold my breath more than 20 minutes underwater, that would be, like a dream come true. So in 2010, I set out to... In all training, nobody had ever done it before. So I set out to become the first to pass this magical barrier, break this glass ceiling, as we say, and push that barrier for mankind.
Did you ever think, I had asthma as a child, I can't do this?
No, and I didn't think about it until people started telling me, and clever people like you asking, do you think something in your childhood maybe subconsciously has spurred you on to something like this? But I kind of self-healed along the way, and I found that freediving was a great cure for asthma, or at least a great help or aid or treatment. Both. I've helped many, many people since with allergies and asthma. This imbalance, which can be helped certainly by changing your breathing and having more CO2 and slowing down your breath. That was a really short description of doing it. People can look more into the Butoico method and oxygen advantage, Patrick McHugh, and there are many, different people describing it in different ways. But the original style is Butoico, a Russian man who, during the war, found that a lot of people, he wasn't a doctor, but he was very curious about helping people. And he found out by kind of trial and error that slowing down the breath and getting higher levels of CO2 help with a lot of things. And then he kind of defined how to breathe and how to basically slow down your breathing. So I've been studying many different styles of breathing and different, like in yoga, I go into different styles because it all has the same end goal of being more healthy and more happy. That's the end goal, I guess, even of religion. Plus, meeting God or the divine self or the divine universe. So in yoga, that would be samadhi or nirvana or paradise. In other religions, it would be meeting God or, going to the heavens, eternal heavens.
It's so interesting because for so many people, self-limiting beliefs would say, I have asthma, so I can't do this. And then the flip side of that is, I've done this because of, or I've done this in spite of. And so it's just such a framing of this.
I think it's very true. So get back to fear, getting back to fear. I've never been fear-based because I don't think that's a healthy driver. I know that you can do a million things in life and you can mask things and hide things and be aggressive and also become very beautiful when you go through that journey and come out on the other side, I guess. But I never really had a reason for a lot of fear in my life. I've been very, very blessed and privileged, compared to when I look around the world. And I know that, and I'm grateful for that. And I thank, my surroundings and my loving grandparents. And, I have those little prayers every day. I did one right in the park now. I just did a workout this morning and the sunlight and just remembering and seeing that love in the eyes of my grandmother and just taking 2 seconds to put this little gratitude prayer in after my workout, just to settle that in my body. So that's like the stepping stone for starting the day on the right leg, so to speak. But fear in my case has not been good. I think being mistreated or being not seen or being misunderstood can be a huge driver as well. So my point before I wanted to make, both with the snakes but also diving under ice, you should not attempt diving under ice or holding your breath for 20 minutes if you're basing that on fear, like running away. Because in freediving, which is very different from almost any other activity in the world of sports, right? It's a lifestyle, but let's call it sport. For the matter of performance in this case, you have to relax as much as possible. So, that's why I usually say I'm quite, I'm so relaxed that I'm so lazy. I kind of just sleep for 20 minutes when I have to make a joke about what I do when I hold my breath. Of course, there's a lot of training and a lot of hard work before that. But it's true, in the moment, the more you can relax, the more lazy, put a funny word on it that kids would understand, the more chill and down to earth and relaxed you can become, the better you can perform. So it's very opposite many other sports. I train the best athletes in the world champion athletes. I could name drop a lot of names. I train the Royal Air Force, Navy SEALs, people from SEAL Team 6, the best of the best of the best in the world. Also business people now more and more, B2B, helping employees as well, staying healthy and happy and more productive, but also just not getting sick in the mind or the body. So that's becoming modernized now since breathwork is becoming more accepted. But I've trained the best of the best in the world. And of course, I also look a lot at how can they relax in the part of the brain or the mind or the muscles that they don't use. So all great athletes know this, right? You can't tense the whole body. Even a boxer needs to be light on the legs. Like, to take an example, people can visualize, they have to be lighter on the feet, even MMA and all this and that, but they have to be, explosive on the shoulders and throwing the when they're hitting, and the mind has to be, laser focused. So fear is not for me a good place to go from, but healthy respect. And then really, you can say due diligence, right? Really drill, do the drills, do the work, do all the baby steps. I like to have a baby step approach to anything in life. So, and that goes back to becoming comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So expanding that zone of discomfort. And that goes back to what you say about fear. Then you don't have fear and you don't have limiting beliefs. So maybe one thing I've been very lucky or fortunate to be given, I don't know who gave it to me, someone, I've never been really self-limiting in my beliefs. I think anything is possible. I'm kind of dumb, right? And very childish. I still am. I'm 52, just ask my age. I'm very childish in many times in my behavior and the horrible jokes I make with people that I think are so funny myself. Maybe two other people that really like me. They appreciate them as well. But the sense of humor, really dry sense of humor. That is something I try to instill in people, especially young people, when I coach people or train them or help them, to remove those barriers of self-doubt and limiting beliefs, because it blocks you so much more than you can imagine, especially if you're younger, you don't see the path ahead. So that's what I do with breath holding. So my go-to tool, my magic tool, is breath holding.
Okay.
Not just for myself, but for people as an instrument. You can play the flute, or you can play the violin, or you can play the piano. Make it dramatic. You can use many tools, but I use breath holding because it's the best way for me, because I know about breath holding, what it does, how your mind operates, and I see and feel the energies in people and where they're going without any words, just from the body position, their body movements, their eyes, the everything around them, and then gently you move them forward. So in breathology, the system I've created, my breathing style or my breathing platform, breathology, or the science of breathing, as I call it, or the implementation and using breathing in everyday modern situations. In breathology, we also educate instructors who can become certified, and there we have this push method. So when they have to teach their students or clients or patients, there are two ways to take, either the hard push or the soft push. And that simply resembles the nervous system, because in the nervous system we have two branches, if we make it really simple now, but it's better to be simple sometimes. So the nervous system consists of one path, one branch called the sympathetic nervous system. You would also call it fight or flight or fear-based. So that's adrenaline, cortisol. That's what boosts you up and gets you ready to fight that T-Rex or whatever is coming after you. And then the opposite system is called rest and digest. It's also called parasympathetic. It doesn't matter with all these fancy Latin words. It simply means the system that regenerates your body, your thoughts, your mind, gets you into a deeper sleep, and restores what is broken down or you can say cell membranes or muscles that have been torn, or your thoughts that have been worn out, from stress, depression, anxiety, fear. All those issues or challenges can be dealt with much better when you move into the parasympathetic part. Because if you're in the fight and flight, in the you can say adrenaline system, your body's just trying to run, get away, or sometimes it's also called fight and flight and freeze. You just stand there like a deer in the headlights. You don't know what to do. But normally you would either run or fight. So when you do that, your blood vessels expand. You send a lot of blood to your legs so you can run. Your pupils dilate, and you're in this kind of shock alert mode, right? So that is not a place for your body to recover. It's not, all digestion shuts down. So that's why a lot of people that are stressed actually have trouble digesting. So, they will have trouble either going to the bathroom or whatever they eat. They get a lot of issues with different foods that normally for them would not be an issue. But when you're not breathing right and when you're not using the diaphragm, when you're not massaging the inner organs, we have all these incredible organs. I'm not much into cars, but if you look at your body as a car, inside of your belly, basically you have all these beautiful organs. You have the spleen, kidneys, you have the liver that cleanses the blood and everything. So you have all these kind of little engines in there that cleanse and filter and rejuvenate your body. But if they're not functional, maybe they're running at 25% out of 100, then you get stale blood, you get all the toxins that will stay in your liver, you get fatty liver, you get all these issues that then have a lot of secondary effects. But if you with breathing, or in my case, breath holding, can move into that rest and digest and that recovery phase, it doesn't matter if you change your diet. I'm not recommending not to change it to something more healthy, but if you just change that alone, can give you a new pathway to solve some issues that you didn't know were possible. So in my case, breath holding, I usually say if you can learn to become comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, you can apply that as a life skill. So that's my tool for breath holding for people. And by the way, never attempt to hold your breath alone underwater. It can be deadly dangerous because it can feel so good, believe it or not, that you want to stay there. And you come closer to nirvana, this heavenly feeling. But in general, it feels uncomfortable and you start breathing. But if you do it on dry land, it doesn't matter if you fall unconscious, if you black out, it's called, if you lose consciousness, because your body we'll start breathing again.
I've been there before. I want you to rewire my brain right now. Okay, what should I do? You've been in so many different environments, training people to remove themselves from a fear-based mindset, which I believe is the most important thing we need to do as a society right now.
Yes.
Like, how do I move from being fear-based, more of my sympathetic, to being more comfortable in these uncomfortable moments?
Wonderful question. Maybe one of the most important questions in our time, to be very honest, because we are, as you say, running this fear-based society. We can just look around. We don't need to go into details. We all know there are many, many situations it's fear-based, unfortunately and sadly, but also we get just overloaded. So not only fear, but also the impressions. We get millions of them every day because of social media, the connectivity to the world and so forth. My best go-to tool is what I call Relax on Demand. It is what I train the Navy SEALs in, Olympian gold-winning athletes, the highest level of performance in the world. They still don't know about this method often. And it's a game changer, even at that level. So what is Relax on Demand? It's a term I coined many years ago, and it just simply means that you, in an instant, can choose consciously to flick a switch and go in to that parasympathetic part of your nervous system, that branch that is the rest and digest. Let's just call it the feel-good system because everybody can relate to that. So anyone listening to your podcast today, you just sit up straight or lie down, doesn't matter, but sit up straight with, a proud posture, open your chest, and the nose is for breathing and the mouth is for eating. That's how it is. So we breathe in with our nose. You can put a hand on your belly. There's a slight pause. So there are 4 phases in breathing. We're now in the second phase. I'm talking, but I'm still holding my breath, right? I'm exhaling. Then slowly and softly you exhale with the mouth, with the sound of a snake. Soften your eyes, soften your forehead, soften your entire face in that exhale, soften your shoulders, little smile on your face. We're in the exhale now, so we just went from the 3rd phase of the breathing cycle to the 4th, which is the exhale, the pause. I'm still talking now on a pause. Now we inhale again. That was one breath. hold it there, hold it in. Just feel your chest a bit tense, a bit open. Maybe you can feel the heart go because there's this room now, but we're still holding our breath and we're in control. That's the magic of breathing. You are in control. And with that control, you also control your mind. That is the most overlooked, I think, life hack in the 21st century. Now we start to exhale slowly. So we had a pause about 10, 15 seconds while I was talking, yada, yada, yada. We exhaled. And when that exhale comes to an end, a natural soft end, landing the plane, as I say, we then take time, have that exhale, that pause, to reconnect with the next cycle of breath. So we inhale again, softly, with a smile. What do we breathe in? Positivity, energy, fresh air. We just talked with Frederick, our magic man here behind the scenes, soft morning air. Imagine cool air, sunlight. Whatever comes into your life that's important, take that in. Slight pause again. Snake breathing. I say snake breathing because in Cambodia they don't speak English, and I support kids in Cambodia, so I tell them like a snake. And when I show my hand like this, they know what a snake is. This is to control the exhale. So you get air flow control because you put your tongue and you make the sounds. And slight pause. That's it. Now, everyone listening to your wonderful podcast did 3 rounds of breathing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Probably took a few minutes if they time it. So they're like, wow, I could do 3 breaths in 2 minutes?
Yeah. I
Like,
feel
that's amazing.
This is amazing.
And your arms tingle a little bit. Your light minds up. Your eyes see more clearly. For many reasons that we can go into in podcast part 2 on the Julian's show, but it's basically because you have oxygenated your blood.
Yeah.
When you do the resistance exhale, you have a slightly elevated partial pressure of oxygen in your lungs. And in normal common English, in plain English, it just means you push more oxygen from the air in your lungs into your bloodstream. And then the red blood cells that also carry hemoglobin, which is a little protein molecule that binds 4 oxygen molecules, like a car has 4 wheels, and that rushes out to every single cell in your body. You have about 30 trillion cells. Every single cell in your body needs energy production that comes from oxygen, and it's called the metabolism, or, the way that you have this fire inside, the live fire, and it needs oxygen to burn and some kind of energy, which in many cases comes from sugar or carbs. And it can come from other sources if you fast and do other things. But in general, you need that oxygen to be the life source. So breathing is life. And the way you breathe is the way you feel. And I hope that we can end with this, that your podcast listeners are kind of feeling empowered. That, wow, my gosh, I can be on the bus. I can be feeling a bit anxious or fearful or uncomfortable before a job interview, before a big lecture, before having this, big talk at my company or for my family reunion, or before an exam. There are so many situations in life where you need to stay calm and grounded and become the best version of yourself. And usually you're the most, positive and approachable person when you're also relaxed.
Yeah.
And you have your guards down. So if we can leave this exercise with people, I call it relax on demand. If you go into yoga, it would be 1-2 breathing. So what we did was actually a ratio of 1-2. Pranayama breathing. Pranayama is the 4th limb of yoga, but now I think people have had enough information today. But pranayama is the 4th limb out of the 8 limbs of yoga, called Ashtanga yoga. It means 8 limbs or the 8 steps, and that means to enlightenment, to the highest level of yoga, melting with the universe and nature and yourself, becoming light and part of prana, the life universal energy. And when you then do the 1-2 breathing, meaning that the inhale is, let's say, 5 seconds, right? In our case, we probably did 10 because we really went all in. And then the exhale was about 20 seconds. So if people just do this at home without all my talk and all this and that, I would say breathing in for 5 seconds, then having a slight pause, which would be a few seconds. That second phase, the pause. Then the third phase is the exhale. and that would be double, in that case, 10 seconds, right? 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Anyone can do that. With asthma, lung issues, lung cancer, allergies, post-COVID, anything, anyone can do 5 in, 10 out.
Yeah.
And then again, a slight pause of just a few seconds to end the breath, end the cycle, fulfill that one life breath.
Phenomenal. This is like, my head is just going on one. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I just want to say, I've spent 7 years, I think, doing Wim Hof every morning.
Yeah.
It's been hugely beneficial, like the breath work, but it's still somewhat inaccessible. I need to lie down. I need to do this. But this is something that yesterday I went on stage. I was doing my things, gratitude and bring light in and everything. But this is like, how do you get back into your body? How do you get into your parasympathetic nervous system? Everyone faces this like every day in their lives, whether they're taking an exam as a 16-year-old or they are going on stage or they're about to go into a meeting with a boss they fucking hate. This is incredibly accessible. Just a quick one. When you're speaking, because I'm starting to notice, you probably take 3 breaths a minute?
Yeah, I'm not even counting, but a very slow breathing rhythm. Yeah, we overbreathe. That's just
and this is something I need to fix.
And when you train your breathing, it becomes it's a conscious exercise in the beginning, but then it becomes an unconscious or subconscious good habit. So breathology is basically a system I created resting on 3 pillars. Timeless wisdom, that's what we've been discussing now. Yoga, what people have done for thousands of years because they're not idiots. So if it didn't work, they probably wouldn't continue to do it. So understanding the body-mind connection through breath, which is pranayama, the 4th limb. So that's connecting body and mind through breathing, which also is why breathing with the body like this 1-2 ratio, whatever you do, is just like push-ups. Yeah. Anyone can do it. Thus, it's accessible, but it connects you to your mind. So it's a way to regain control of your mind, which often goes a bit, haywire. The second part or the second pillar in breathology is the performance aspect. You need to be able to see that you get improved progress. Like you need to see that you feel more relaxed and that you can run longer or, remove that or at least delay that lactic acid production and so forth in high performance sports or just in recovery from injury or health issues, right? And the third pillar is cutting edge science, just because I come from a background of biology, PhD in medicine, working with the best scientists and researchers in the world. Again, I'm very blessed, very privileged, I know. And so the third pillar in breathology is cutting edge science, which goes right into the superhuman stuff that we've been discussing here for 2 days with Brian Johnson and the Don't Die and Live Forever and I would say longevity/biohacking. So cutting edge science in my world means measuring with whatever Fitbit, Apple Watch, whatever little device you have and getting feedback on what's going on when you breathe in a certain way. So you need to assess and get numbers back. So I'm also data-driven, right? So when people see the results improve, that's performance. That's great. They win the Olympic gold medal or their personal goal. That's fantastic. They feel better. They sleep better. That's the health part, right? The yoga parts, so to speak, and maybe they lose weight. Also, breathwork is incredibly beneficial for weight loss because of the things I discussed before with the digestion and kind of gaining control of your balanced, body and nervous system. And then the third point is, of course, I see in the data my breath cycle went down. I'm not over breathing anymore. I don't get a headache anymore. I don't get that tension in my shoulder at work.
So we can breathe, we can be speaking while we're breathing out and when we're breathing in, right?
Yeah.
That's something that I can't do because I feel like I'm just holding.
Yeah, but when that pause becomes soft, it's no problem.
So if I am speaking now and I'm exhaling my breath.
Yeah. It's
I can't do it.
Well, anything takes practice.
Okay, so actually you can practice that and it's all of a sudden you're not holding because I feel I only speak when I'm holding my breath.
Breathwork, I've trained thousands.
Yeah.
Many, many thousands of people that are singers.
Yeah.
So I've trained hundreds of thousands of people through online and network, and my breathology platform is online, right? So of course many, many hundreds of thousands of people have trained through the books and the training I give and the TV programs I've done. But I've trained literally many thousands of people that are singers and just interested in voice training because breathwork has such a strong implication on your singing skills with the diaphragm, the strengthening, and the control of singing. And there are also many platitudes and what you should do and support from the diaphragm and sing from your diaphragm, sing from your belly, sing. And I work with a great voice coach called Pierre Bristow, who's also becoming a great friend of mine. And there are many things in the old style of singing and breath training that are kind of outdated.
Yeah.
So they need a revision. But of course, if you have more control of your singing, and I do believe that you were an opera singer, you've been singing a lot, so you also have a lot of knowledge of breathing, but maybe you're a great example that just because you did opera singing or did high-level singing, it doesn't mean that you know how to breathe well.
Yeah.
Or that you can at least improve more. So I brought you this present here, which is a little device, and you can put it on your finger. It's called a pulse oximeter, a fingertip oximeter. You just slap it on there, and you turn it on. So it's very simple. Put it on your finger there, and you turn it on. You push the white there, and then you can see the exact amount of oxygen in your bloodstream. And I'm not trying to sell anything on this podcast. Just go and buy it on Amazon for 10, 15, 20 bucks. Any ripoff, any Chinese model, doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I've had this question a million times, which pulse oximeter to buy and all this and that. And of course I have advice on that, but that's not for this podcast. That's for more high level stuff. Buy any pulse oximeter you find on Amazon. It costs 50 bucks or 20 bucks or 30 bucks, has different features. But basically what it does is that it shows you your heart rate, which is interesting. And it shows you the oxygen saturation, in plain English, how much oxygen is in your bloodstream. And that is related directly to how you breathe. And when you use the nose, you also breathe in something called nitric oxide or nitrogen oxide, NO. Now, the Nobel Prize was given about 18 years ago to 3 scientists who discovered what exactly nitrogen oxide does. Not that it is in the body, it's produced in the mucous membrane, we know that, but it is a vasodilator. It opens your blood vessels. So imagine your lungs opening, and when you breathe with the nose, you get that extra gas in because it's produced in the sinuses. So the biggest mistake people can do and do is mouth breathing, because you miss all the benefits of the nitrogen oxide, that thing that opens and relaxes the blood vessels. They're called alveoli, but you have millions of little flowers, little rosebuds in the end station of your lungs, and that is where the oxygen jumps from the air that you breathe in into your bloodstream. So if you could open that and relax that, your performance is much, much elevated in everyday life, meaning I'm almost never tired. I go to sleep in an instant, and I have a deep sleep. I go into REM. So when you naturalize breathing as it should be and get removed from what you said before, all these distractions and this fear-based living, it can be a game changer in life. And it's what you said. So when I talked about breathology, I talked about the 3 pillars: cutting-edge science, peak performance, and timeless wisdom. But the point of breathology, the reason I created it, was because of my passions in yoga and freediving and science. And I merged my 3 hobbies and passions to make them fit a modern framework for busy people.
Yeah.
Because you cannot sit and do yoga 6 hours in the morning. You don't have 2 hours in the afternoon to go and do some stretching, breathing exercises. And you certainly don't have, 3 hours when you're traveling or going somewhere to do something. You need something that's quick, that's efficient, but also on the long term, with the baby step process I'm talking about, builds up your body again and rewires your system. You said you wanted me to rewire your brain. So the main aim for breathology is to rewire your nervous system. I've written it in many articles all over, and I'm not just saying it because you use that word, but rewiring meaning putting back together a system that's broken or maybe not optimized, putting it back in its natural place where it's beautiful and perfect as nature created us. The thing is, with our childhood years and especially teenage years, we become dismantled because of all the distractions in lives and all the fears and all the things that are put on us, or we think that are put on us. And that is what I see as the greatest challenge to health now. And that is, of course, sadly, that is probably why we see more depression and anxiety, fear, and suicidal rates, and just young kids, young people with a lot of challenges that we did not see 20, 30 years ago. And that is also why I'm so dedicated to helping now these kids in Cambodia in a school for once, but for one thing, but also just kids and people in general that are having challenges with regulating the mind. And meditation is great, mindfulness is great, but it's not very approachable. And many kids give up on the moment they hear meditation, especially boys. They tell me, I cannot sit still. And if you have ADHD and a lot of other things, you cannot just sit still. But with breathing, even if you're moving, you can coordinate the breathing to the movement. And you can find that flow. And then when you start to see you can get in control of the breathing, then you can get in control of the mind. So it's very important to understand for young kids listening out there that you can use the breathing to control your mind. And that is the secret of yoga, but it's put in a modern framework with breathology so that anyone can do it.
What are we getting wrong? You spend so much time with a wide range of people from different parts of this world.
Overthinking is one thing. Obviously, you have so many thoughts in your mind, and we have all these distractions from social media, drugs becoming very accepted, I would say, and not that it's a good thing, but at all, but it's becoming more common, I would say, to have different degrees of drugs. I'm not talking about microdosing and all that. That's a different thing, and that's kind of going back to the 60s and 70s with microdosing, LSD, and kind of discovering how can we heal people that have severe trauma. I prefer, because that's the world I know, and I never did drugs, not that I'm a saint or I wouldn't be curious on anything. But I have done everything to and with my body. But, since I also have these world championships and 10 Guinness World Records, I didn't mention those, but all these kind of records that I did more like a showcase to what is possible for the human potential. I did them more as a kind of a storytelling and did it with sharks and did the 20 minutes 10 in the Shark Tank to make it fun April 1st. So showing you can do amazing things, but storytelling so kids get interested in it as well.
So wait, you did 20 minutes in
10
a shark
seconds in 2010 in a Shark Tank.
in a Shark Tank.
Because as I told you, I'm very childish. So I thought it would be extremely boring to watch a guy floating around for 20 minutes, especially if you're a child. I would be bored even as an adult, but I imagined myself being 12 years old or 7. That would be boring. But if the sharks, lots of sharks were in there, you can find the pictures online.
How low was your heart rate at this point?
At this point, it goes to around half, so 30, 27.
Okay, and at that point, even when the sharks were maybe hitting the tank,
next to me, no,
Okay.
right next to me,
right next to you, there wasn't a cage or anything.
No, nothing, no. But they also sense your heartbeat, so the more calm you can stay in a stressful situation, the more you come out as the winner. But the storytelling in this aspect was also just to show it's not fear-based, and you don't have to be afraid of things you might think you're afraid of, like Jaws, this movie. Kids don't know what I'm talking about, but there was this movie that did a lot of damage to sharks and the marine environment, because when I was young and grew up, we saw this movie called Jaws, and it was about this killing shark that just destroyed everything, and it was, of course, super exaggerated Hollywood style. I think it was Steven Spielberg. He probably regretted making that movie, not because it's not a fun, great, exciting movie, but the damage it did on sharks, right? Hundreds of millions of sharks being culled and killed since then. So I wanted to show that sharks are your friends. They can be your friends. They don't eat humans. Sharks, as a matter of fact, eat fish. Yeah. So I'm trying in my world records to educate people. So the last 10, 15 years, I've spent more time doing storytelling. So now I'm also a world champion in getting distracted and distracting people. So I think to get back on this, what do people do wrong? They overthink, but they don't think and believe they have control. Because the mind is difficult to control, and that's why I'm saying meditation and mindfulness is a great tool, but it's not the first go-to tool.
Yeah.
I think the best, and I'm not just pushing this because I have breathology. Of course, I'm partial here. I'm biased. But what I've seen from my 52 years on this planet and being a scientist is that anyone I've met can do breathing, because we're breathing living beings.
But what would you say to the people that would listen to this and say, Stig, he's just like, he was just born for this.
Yeah.
Well, he was born for this, and he's wired in a certain way. And
No, I'm completely normal. I'm completely normal, but you can expand your lung volume, contrary to what science says and modern medical books are saying. They also got it wrong. You can get more flexibility in your chest, and obviously the chest is just like a plastic bag, a paper bag, right? If you train the muscles around the structure, because the muscles are sitting between the ribs, so they're called intercostal muscles, the little rubber bands, and the more strong you can make them, the more control you get of those muscles. Actually, people can put their fingers on the side of the chest, and you being a singer know this. Breathing does not go in the chest. It should not go in the chest, but that's the image. People have the mental image. Oh, I'm breathing now. And especially when people do not mouth breathing, especially the male style, right? With the mouth, because they get more air quickly because it's a bigger hole, the mouth, and they feel, oh, I'm so masculine. I'm really breathing now. People can try it out there. But feel for one breath. Take one big breath. How dry you are in your throat now.
It's
one breath. So you're dehydrating yourself. You're getting a sore throat, a dry throat. Your speaking doesn't flow as easily if you're a public speaker or go on stage. And you put a lot of pressure on your upper part of your chest, which again pushes the heart. It squeezes the heart. What does the heart do? It beats faster. Now, what does a fast heartbeat mean? What does it mean?
It means sympathetic nervous system.
It means stress. It means for any child or adult, my heart little ticker thing is going off. There must be something wrong. I'm in danger. So subconsciously, you think you're in danger, but you brought that danger feeling on yourself without knowing it. So you produce adrenaline, and that is where a lot of people live. And then to deal with it, they do drugs or drink, all kinds of things, or smoke, or get distracted with pornography, or just bad life choices because you numb the pain or dull this pain. So my best advice would be use breathing at any level where you are. Forget about who I am or Stig Severinsen or world champion or whatever. No, I'm completely normal. And my big mission with breathology is to make the world breathe better, one step at a time, or maybe one baby step at a time, to rewire the nervous system back to this beautiful, strong you, because you are perfect. You're born this way, and you just got, distracted on the way, so to speak. You lost your way, and you need to get back on that healthy path, whatever that means to you. If it's healthier food choices or thought choices, positive thinking, or surrounding yourself with different kinds of people that lift you up and believe in you, right? Speaking of limiting beliefs, can also be people around you that limit your beliefs. They don't believe in you. So get rid of those people and have the people that support you and lift you up in your new life. But breathing is something we can all access because you know what? We breathe 20 to 30,000 times each day. So I see that as a Christmas every day. It's an invitation to make every breath count. If Brian Johnson were here, I would tell him, you want to live forever, don't die. Well, start thinking about every single breath, because that gives you 30,000 opportunities every day to improve not just 2%. No. You can take vitamins and protein powder and a million, spend $8,000 a month on all kinds of things and all these fancy gadgets that measure everything, your heart rate, your night's sleep, all this and that. But if you don't improve the most vital thing in your life, which is second to none, breathing, because try not breathing for about 1 or 2 hours, see how that goes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you get the breathing right, everything else follows. It makes more sense. And then your sleeping pattern will improve and you probably do more healthy choices. You don't grab the salt, meaning chips. You don't get that chocolate, meaning the sugar. You make better choices because you are priming your body for more natural, healthy choices. So breathing, I would say, is number one. And you shouldn't be discouraged. Thinking you need to be flexible, sit in a yoga pose, in the lotus pose, nothing like that. Just sit up straight or lie down or whatever you want to do, but start thinking about your breathing. That would be my very best advice next to the 1-2 breathing. That's a style of breathing. It's a technique, right? Breathing in for 5 seconds, slight pause, breathing out for 10. That's a style of breathing, but thinking about your breathing every day and catch yourself. I was mouth breathing right there. He's right, this crazy dude. I was mouth breathing. And when do I mouth breathe? When I get nervous, when I'm, about to go on stage. And then you catch yourself and you go, you know what? I want to be in control of my thoughts, of my body. I'll do the nose breathing 3 times. And you can exhale with the mouth. That's fine. But inhale with the nose, and then suddenly your whole reality shifts into a controlled, clear, natural state of being.
Thank you.
So that's my best advice.
Just one last key takeaway. If a mother who has a son with ADHD, or someone is about to sit an exam tomorrow, or someone's about to go into a busy meeting, if they can take one key thing from this conversation, what would it be?
It would be The way you breathe is the way you feel, and the way you feel is the way you live. And it sounds shady, it sounds like cliche, sounds like a fairy tale unicorn thing, but it's true. If you have a child with some child or a teenager, see if you can sit down with that beautiful young child and breathe together. And then when you synchronize your breathing, magic happens. Just try it and see what happens. But we have these things called mirror neurons in our brain. So we do breathe like how people are breathing in front of us. So with your own breathing, it might be much more important than you think, because it does not only affect your internal environment, so what hormones you're producing, adrenaline, if you're stressed, and the feel-good hormones, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, cuddle, feel good, feel safe, the mother-child bond hormone, right? And that's released when you breathe in a more slow, controlled fashion. Yeah. So it has an incredible impact on your internal biochemical environment. But the way you breathe also affects other people. And that might be one of the most overlooked things in modern society, that when you control your breathing, like slow inhale with the nose, or just a calm breathing in general, your voice also becomes softer. Because you're not fired up and you don't have adrenaline, you're not like aggressive. No.
Wow, even doing that, just like...
Yeah, you feel the tension.
Yeah.
If you had that pulse oximeter I just gave you on, your heart rate would have gone up about 5 beats per minute.
Wow.
Meaning you're not in the best place, right? So my best advice would be to, whether it's a young mother or a child, start to think about how breathing affects not only your life, but also the surroundings. So when you control your life, you have this incredible positive effect on your surroundings. Yeah. And look at animals around you. With calmness, also your dog, which most people have a dog at home, or a cat, the way, and I have horses, so that's a way too long discussion to go into, but I'm very aware of how I breathe when I'm riding my horse and around the horse, because that affects directly the way my horse is acting and behaving. And horses, by one animal, is extremely sensitive. They can sense a little fly on the back of their bum, So when I ride my horse, I also am very aware of how I breathe. And when I'm breathing right, breathing softly, I'm more balanced than my horse. It makes the shoulders move more effortlessly on the horse. It has more space to move, and it's not stiffening up. So the gait of the horse becomes more soft. And now we can talk elite level riding and all kinds of things. It's way beyond this discussion. But my main takeaway would be, think about how you breathe, because it has tremendous benefits and profound effects around you and your surroundings. So just think about breathing, start there, and then you can go on any breath journey and Google online things and help and advice. And I don't want to go into any particular style, just search around, be curious, and then let that breathing journey start to unfold.
Stig, thank you so much. Been a real pleasure.
Great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
If you want to know what tomorrow has in store like I do, you definitely want to listen to our recent episode where I talked to Peter Diamandis about a future where we could live forever. Thank you so much.